Have you ever stared into the unknown, knowing that every move you made could define how your entire species would be remembered? That's exactly where Captain Alyssa Chen found herself, on the bridge of the most powerful human warship ever built, staring down the face of first contact with an alien race whose intentions were anything but clear. The TSV Avalon didn't just hang in space, it loomed. At 7 kilometers from bow to stern, it was less of a ship and more like a mobile city, glinting under alien stars with a cold, metallic shimmer. The hull curved with purpose, covered in thick armor plates, sensor arrays, and defense turrets, all of which currently lay dormant, but very much ready. She was the pride of the Terran Space Fleet, humanity's first Titan-class interstellar vessel. Every nut and bolt told a story of Earth's rise from fragile planet dwellers to serious contenders on the galactic stage. Inside the command deck, Captain Alyssa Chen stood in silence, her posture straight, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. She was 42, sharp-eyed, calm, and more experienced than her youthful appearance suggested. A pale scar traced the edge of her jawline, a reminder of past missions where her life had been traded for the safety of her crew. 20 years of duty in Earth's Navy had earned her this moment, and now, here she was, commanding 12,000 souls aboard a ship meant to pierce the veil of the unknown. The bridge around her buzzed with quiet activity. Holographic readouts shimmered, crew moved with efficiency, and the large main view screen displayed a swirling planet just ahead. It was the 4th planet in this unexplored star system, a jewel of dark landmasses beneath roiling green-blue cloud bands. Her executive officer, Commander Jackson Reeves, stood beside her console, reading telemetry from his screen. Tall and lean, with warm brown skin and intelligent darting eyes, he had a calm presence that helped keep the crew grounded, even when things turned strange. They had served together for 5 years now. Chen trusted him implicitly. "Status report," Chen ordered, her voice firm but even. Reeves looked up. "All systems nominal, Captain. We've completed the survey of the outer planets. No sign of advanced civilization so far, but the gas giants have significant mineral deposits. Long-term value for sure." She gave a small nod. That had been the plan. Search the edges of known space for anything worth expanding into. Earth was overcrowded. Even with colonies on Mars, Ganymede, and Titan, humanity needed room to grow. But something in her gut said this system was going to offer more than rocks and radiation. Turning slightly, Chen addressed the ship's chief science officer. "Dr. Lakshmi, anything interesting from your department?" Dr. Indira Lakshmi, a composed and analytical woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair pulled into a bun, adjusted her glasses and looked up from her console. "Actually, yes. We've detected an energy signature originating from the 4th planet. It just activated about 20 minutes ago." Chen frowned. "Activated? As in artificial?" Lakshmi gave a slow nod. "The pattern's too structured to be natural. Mathematical harmonics, consistent pulses. It doesn't match anything in our astrophysical database. It's likely technological." That got everyone's attention. "How did we miss it before?" Reeves asked. Lakshmi gestured to a waveform on her screen. "It wasn't broadcasting. This only came online after we entered the system." Chen's eyes narrowed. "Like a proximity sensor." Lakshmi shrugged slightly. "It's possible. Whatever it is, it knows we're here." The tension in the room shifted. Jaws tightened, spines straightened. First contact protocols had been rehearsed, drilled, re-rehearsed. But none of it truly prepared you for the moment when it stopped being theory and became real. "Helm," Chen said without missing a beat. "Bring us into high orbit above the 4th planet. Tactical. Begin passive scans only. No active radar, no targeting pings. Let's not give them a reason to panic." The ship's engines, silent giants, murmured into life, shifting the Avalon with gravity-defying grace. On the main screen, the alien world grew larger. Its cloud cover glowed eerily under the light of its red sun. They entered orbit like a silent moon, watching. From her station at communications, Lieutenant Maya Wong leaned in toward her console. "Captain, we're receiving something. A structured signal, definitely artificial." Chen moved toward her. "Can you decode it?" "Working on it. The universal translator's finding patterns, But it's not instantaneous. Put it through the speakers, let's hear it. A stream of harmonious tones flowed into the room, like chimes played by a mathematically gifted wind. Notes rose and fell, patterns looping in on themselves in fractal rhythms. It was beautiful, but precise. Too precise to be anything but intelligent. Recording and analyzing, Wang confirmed. We're making progress. AI is identifying linguistic structures. The bridge fell quiet. This was the moment. The reason the Avalon existed. The reason people had left Earth behind and risked everything to travel into the unknown. They were not alone. After 10 long minutes, the AI broke through. Translation fragment. Unknown vessel. Identify purpose. Approach with caution. Reeves let out a slow breath. They're cautious. That's good. Means they're not automatically hostile. Or they're afraid, Chen said bluntly. Which could be worse. Fear leads to unpredictable behavior. Send the standard greeting package, she ordered. Mathematical constants, chemical composition of water, basic images of Earth, peaceful intent only, no weapons shown. Aye, Captain, Wang replied. Moments later, Lieutenant Wei at Tactical sat up straighter. Captain, we've got movement. Surface launch signatures, multiple. How many? 30 vessels. Moving in formation. Defensive posture. No weapons locked. Chen nodded. Maintain non-aggression. Shields up but not active. The alien ships approached slowly. On screen, they resembled living sculptures. Sleek silver hulls with organic curves, like something grown instead of built. Each was perhaps 100 meters long. Beautiful. Advanced. But small compared to Avalon. Like minnows circling a whale. We're getting a new transmission, Wang said suddenly. Visual data incoming. The view screen shifted. The bridge crew sat frozen. The being that appeared was stunning. Humanoid in the loosest sense. Slender, tall, its skin shimmering with iridescent hues that shifted like oil on water. It had 4 limbs, no visible mouth, and massive, multifaceted eyes that glittered with alien intelligence. Gills pulsed along its neck. The AI's improving real-time translation, Wang said. They call themselves the Valari. This one is a high-ranking military leader. The being spoke, its voice musical and fluid. Unknown vessel. You have entered Valari space. Your craft is of unprecedented size and power. Explain your presence and intentions immediately. Chen stepped forward. Her voice was calm, respectful, but firm. I am Captain Alyssa Chen of the Terran vessel Avalon. We are explorers from a planet called Earth, seeking peaceful contact and knowledge. We did not realize this system was claimed. We apologize for the intrusion. The Valari commander's skin shifted, deep blues and purples. It stared through the screen. Your vessel's scale suggests warfare capabilities beyond any we've known. Are you invaders? Chen met the gaze without blinking. No. Our ship is large because we travel far, and we carry our people with us. Scientists, families, civilians. We are equipped for defense, but our mission is peace. There was a pause. You will remain in your current orbit, the Valari responded. Any movement will be deemed hostile, and then the transmission cut. They're scared, Reeves said under his breath. Chen nodded. Would not you be? Imagine something this size showing up in Earth orbit with unknown intentions. Valari ships are holding position, Wei reported. They're not attacking, just watching. Dr. Lakshmi approached. Captain, their tech is impressive. Their ships move with gravity-defying agility. But what? Their energy usage is shockingly efficient. No waste heat, no radiation. Their designs are beyond ours, yet they seem genuinely intimidated by us. Chen leaned on the edge of her console, staring at the rotating planet on the screen. Sometimes fear isn't about strength, it's about misunderstanding. Behind her, the ship hummed with latent power. Families gathered in quiet quarters. Scientists studied the alien signals. Marines stayed alert, but restrained. And 12,000 hearts waited, hoping their first message to the stars wouldn't be misunderstood. What had started as an exploratory mission had now become the most important moment in human history. And it was only just beginning. First contact didn't feel like a triumph. It felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss, where one wrong word, one misunderstood gesture, could send everything plunging into darkness. Humanity had crossed the stars to meet a new form of life, and now that they were being watched with more suspicion than awe. The bridge of the TSV Avalon felt heavier somehow, as if the tension between the crew and the unknown radiating from the planet below pressed down on everyone's shoulders. The Valari had not attacked, but their message was unmistakable. Stay exactly where you are. Captain Elisa Chen stood in front of the main view screen, her gaze steady as the alien planets spun slowly beneath them. The Valari ships maintained a precise, distant formation, 30 vessels spread evenly in orbit, a net of glittering silver eyes encircling the massive human ship. None ventured closer than 1,000 kilometers, but none withdrew either. They held their perimeter like a silent jury deliberating a verdict. Commander Jackson Reeves leaned over the tactical display, reviewing telemetry feeds with a thoughtful frown. No weapon locks, no energy spikes. They're holding formation and watching. Chen glanced at him. They're still trying to figure us out. Hard to blame them. We show up with the biggest ship they've ever seen, armed to the teeth, and say we're peaceful. If I were them, I'd be nervous too. From her science station, Dr. Indira Lakshmi looked up, eyes bright behind her lenses. They're not just nervous. They're studying us. Their data requests are coming through now. Requests? Chen turned to her. What kind? Lakshmi brought up a display. They're asking for information on our biology, atmospheric requirements, food sources, and language structures, but also music, art, social hierarchies. Chen raised an eyebrow. That's specific. They're evaluating us on more than just a military scale, Lakshmi explained. This isn't just about whether we're a threat. They want to know what kind of culture we bring with us, what kind of impact we have on ecosystems, civilizations, maybe even on values. A silence settled over the bridge for a moment. Then Chen gave a quiet nod. Send them what they asked for, within parameters. No sensitive systems, but give them a real picture of who we are. Aye, Captain, Lakshmi replied. In a ship of 12,000 souls, this moment rippled outward like a pebble in water. Across every deck of the Avalon, people felt it. The Valari were listening, watching, judging. The communications team began transmitting curated cultural packets, images of Earth's natural wonders, audio recordings of Beethoven and Coltrane, photographs of bustling cities and peaceful villages. There were diagrams of human DNA, overviews of technological history, footage of early space exploration. Nothing classified, nothing threatening. Just humanity, laid bare for alien eyes. Back in the captain's quarters, Chen reviewed footage from the diplomatic archives. She studied past first contact simulations, body language protocols, even psychological analyses of nonverbal communication. But there were no real precedents for this. Earth's history was filled with stories of first contact between cultures, and more often than not, those stories ended in tragedy, for the ones with less power. This time, Chen thought, we're the ones with more power. We need to prove we won't abuse it. Later that evening, Lieutenant Maya Wang called the captain back to the bridge. Captain, we've received another message. From the Valari? Yes. Translated and tagged by the AI as a formal inquiry. They want to initiate a two-way exchange. Chen took a deep breath. Let's hear it. The alien voice, musical and delicate, filled the bridge again. This time less guarded, more measured. Terran vessel Avalon, we have reviewed your data. Your species demonstrates signs of advanced reasoning, environmental adaptability, and artistic self-reflection. These traits are promising. We propose a controlled exchange of non-sensitive information to assess compatibility and intent. Chen exhaled slowly. This was it. A test. An olive branch. And a leash. Respond, she said. A firm willingness to participate. Reiterate peaceful intent. And ask to understand their people too. Language, customs, values. We want this to be mutual. For the next several hours, the Avalon became a floating university. Its scientists, linguists, and anthropologists working around the clock to build the foundation of trust. With each data exchange, the walls lowered, inch by inch. Valari language was deeply layered, structured around emotion-based tonality and visual skin patterns. Their speech was both sound and color, each sentence accompanied by a cascade of hues flowing across their skin. It wasn't just language. It was emotion made visible. It made translation difficult. A simple yes might carry shades of agreement, hesitation, or doubt, depending on the color blend. But even in these difficulties, the Avalon crew saw beauty. In the Valerie's art, abstract energy paintings that pulsed and shifted like living beings. In their music, compositions that used three-dimensional resonance chambers to shape sound into emotion. In their cities, delicate crystalline towers woven around living plants, powered by clean, non-invasive energy sources. "They've built a civilization centered on balance," Lakshmi whispered to Chen during one briefing. "Elegance, efficiency. They don't dominate their environment. They harmonize with it." Chen stared at the images, awed. "And yet, they're scared of us." "Because we've built a civilization centered on survival," Lakshmi replied. "That often means force." Commander Reeves joined the discussion, arms folded. "Their fear is rational. Look at us. We built a Titan-class warship just to explore deep space." "And brought railguns and particle beams with us," Chen added with a smirk. The smirk faded quickly. "What happens," she asked quietly, "when they decide they can't trust us?" No one had an answer. Meanwhile, the Valari sent videos of their own. Their people tending vast underwater gardens, children in schools playing complex music-based logic games, engineers building bridges by weaving light and material like thread. It was humbling. They had no giant warships, no planetary bunkers, but they thrived. And yet, they feared extinction. The next message from the Valari was more personal. A new figure appeared on the screen, a different commander, this one older, with deep violet and silver hues on its skin. The AI translated. "Captain Chen, I am Admiral Thariel of the Valari. When we first detected your ship, we believed a predator had come. Your size, your weapons, your unknown nature. It frightened us." Chen stood before the display, arms at her sides. "But," Thariel continued, "your actions have not aligned with predation. You halted your advance. You transmitted peace. You offered art, not conquest. That is, unprecedented." Chen nodded. "Fear is natural. We would feel the same if a ship your size arrived above Earth. We didn't come to threaten. We came to learn." Thariel's eyes shimmered. "And what have you learned?" "That size doesn't mean power, and power doesn't mean superiority." The Valari commander tilted its head slightly, perhaps their version of a smile. "This is encouraging." Still, trust was a slow road. The Valari sent further inquiries, subtle, probing. They wanted to know about Earth's history of conflict, about climate damage, resource wars, the use of force in diplomacy. They were searching not just for weapons, but for patterns, trying to understand how humans thought. Chen didn't flinch. She allowed a carefully redacted file to be shared. A historical overview of Earth's struggles, world wars, famines, social divides, and the efforts that followed. Peace treaties, clean energy transitions, social revolutions, medical breakthroughs. She didn't hide the flaws. She showcased the recovery. Lakshmi commented quietly one evening, "They're trying to assess if we're a virus or a vaccine." And then came the first breakthrough. The Valari requested a shared virtual environment, a simulated meeting space where their emissaries and human representatives could interact in real time. It was a test of trust, security, and cultural diplomacy. The simulation was simple. A neutral terrain, resembling a meadow under starlight, filled with flowing water and bioluminescent plants. Chen entered with Reeves, Lakshmi, and 2 cultural officers. On the other side stood 4 Valari, tall, luminous, and graceful. The moment was electric. Chen spoke slowly. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Thariel stepped forward. "Our people fear, but also hope. You came uninvited, yet you waited. You showed power, yet withheld it. This is rare." "We came to make friends," Chen said, "not war." There was a pause. Then Thariel extended a long, delicate arm, palm up. A gesture, an invitation. Chen stepped forward and mirrored it. Human skin touched alien shimmer. The simulation rippled with light. Not code, emotion. shared understanding. And across both fleets, human and Valari, a signal was broadcast. Trust had begun. Peace is never guaranteed, not in space, and certainly not in first contact. Just when it felt like the walls between species were starting to lower, the stars themselves stirred. Something massive was coming. Something that made fear not just justified, but necessary. The TSV Avalon had been in high orbit above the Valari homeworld for just under a full planetary rotation, 18 hours by Earth time. In that short window, humanity and the Valari had begun a tentative but remarkable exchange. There was understanding, cautious respect, even glimpses of mutual admiration. But trust, as they were about to learn, was fragile when danger approached. On the bridge, Lieutenant Wei was the first to speak. "Captain, we've got something. New object entering the system from the outer edge. High velocity. Energy signature. Unknown." Captain Alyssa Chen, who had been reviewing a translated Valari cultural file with Dr. Lakshmi, looked up instantly. "Unknown? Is it Valari?" Wei's fingers tapped furiously across his console. "Negative. Does not match any Valari technology we've seen so far. It's huge, over 2 kilometers long. Readings show extremely high energy output. Looks heavily armed." Commander Reeves leaned over the tactical display. "Trajectory? Straight toward the Valari homeworld," Wei answered grimly. The bridge atmosphere shifted instantly, from cautious diplomacy to alert readiness. Officers straightened. Subsystems came online. The hum of the Avalon changed in pitch, a soft indication of engines preparing for action. Within moments, Valari ships responded. "Captain," Maya Wong said at comms, "the Valari fleet is breaking formation. Half their vessels are accelerating to intercept the incoming object. The others are holding position around us." Chen moved toward the center of the bridge. "They're trying to protect both us and the planet." "They know what's coming," Reeves said under his breath. Another alert chimed. "Incoming transmission from Valari Commander," Wong announced. The screen flickered. Admiral Therrell reappeared, his skin now a pale, pulsing hue with streaks of darkened pigment swirling across his neck and arms. The translator rendered his voice more urgent than before. "Terran vessel," Therrell said. "We are under imminent threat. The approaching entity is a warship of the Drade. They are predators, conquerors, and parasites. We recommend you withdraw immediately. Protect your people! Leave now!" Chen didn't respond right away. She studied the alien's eyes, those multifaceted jewels reflecting light and fear alike. Therrell wasn't ordering them. He was warning them. Reeves stepped closer to Chen. "That doesn't sound like arrogance. That sounds like desperation." Chen turned to her crew. "Analysis?" Lakshmi, her face unusually tight, responded first. "The Drade are known to the Valari. From the few translated files we've seen, they've attacked multiple systems. The Valari lost 3 colonies to them over the last decade. The Drade consume everything: biospheres, technology, even biological matter." "They don't negotiate," Reeves added. "They invade and annihilate." Chen's gaze was steady. "What's their tech look like?" Wei answered as new data streamed in. "We're getting partial scans now. 1 capital ship, 2.1 kilometers, a mix of mechanical and organic matter. Structure appears asymmetrical, almost grown. Multiple weapons arrays. Shields function differently, energy absorption rather than deflection. And they're launching fighters. Hundreds of them." "Like a hive," Lakshmi said, voice low. "Their behavior is almost insectoid. Swarm tactics, coordinated movement, possibly a hive mind." Chen inhaled, deeply and silently. The Drade were terrifying, not just in form but in function. They didn't just conquer, they consumed. Whole planets, whole species, and they were on their way. She made her decision with no dramatic flourish, no pause for applause or contemplation, just the weight of command settling like steel in her chest. "Open a channel to the Valari Commander." Therrell reappeared within moments. Chen's voice was calm but resolute. "Admiral Therrell, we detect the same threat approaching your system. We will not withdraw. The Avalon was built to explore, but also to protect. We offer our assistance." The Valari commander didn't answer immediately. His skin flashed rapidly, bright yellows and shifting purples. The translator struggled, trying to catch the emotional nuance. "You would intervene?" Therrell finally said. "In a war not your own?" Chen nodded. "That's what explorers do. We help, where we can." The bridge remained silent as Therrell stared at her. The moment stretched. Finally, he lowered his head slightly. "Your assistance would be appreciated, but know this. The Drade are not like any enemy you've faced. They do not take prisoners. They do not bargain. They exist only to feed." Chen's voice didn't waver. "We understand." The Avalon's lights dimmed briefly as its main engines powered up. The ship turned from passive orbit to active defense posture. Sensors aligned, shields charged. Weapons systems, dormant since launch, began to warm. Chen looked across her crew. "Let's show them what humanity brings to the table." The main view screen shifted to show the Drade warship entering range. It was hideous. Unlike the sleek elegance of Valari design, or the engineered precision of the Avalon, the Drade ship looked alive, pulsing and writhing beneath a chitinous, bone-like shell. Tubes throbbed along its hull. Weapon arrays jutted out like claws. Some areas even looked wounded, yet still functional. It was not a ship. It was a monster. Dr. Lakshmi whispered what everyone was thinking. "That thing's not just built. It's grown." And then it launched its attack. Swarms of Drade fighters poured forth from its hull. Dozens, then hundreds. Small drum-like vessels with clawed extensions and glowing red cores. They came in waves, weaving and darting in impossible patterns, guided by a centralized, perfect coordination, like bees, or worse. The Valari fleet responded with precision laser fire. Their sleek ships danced between bursts of plasma and energy, downing drones in surgical strikes. But for every Drade drone destroyed, 3 more took its place. Lieutenant Wei shouted over the noise. "They're overwhelmed. The Valari can't hold them off alone." "Bring us between the Drade and the planet," Chen ordered. "Shields to full, active targeting, focus fire on the swarms." The Avalon moved with terrifying grace, its engines flaring as it inserted itself between the Valari homeworld and the incoming tide of death. Within seconds, humanity's weapons, untested in actual war, unleashed their fury. Particle beams lanced out, sweeping across enemy formations and tearing holes in the ranks. Point defense turrets tracked the fast-moving drones with near-instant precision, cutting them down by the dozens. Whole swarms buckled, shredded by the onslaught. But the Drade adapted, fast. "They're adjusting their approach vectors," Wei warned. "They're learning our attack patterns." Chen didn't hesitate. "Switch to randomized targeting. Don't give them anything predictable." The tide began to turn. Valari ships, emboldened by Avalon's support, pushed forward. They shifted to coordinated maneuvers, striking in sync with human barrages. The battlefield lit up with waves of synchronized retaliation. For a few minutes, it looked like they had a chance. Then everything changed. A sudden pulse of energy erupted from the Drade mothership, washing over the battlefield. Every screen flickered. Lights dimmed, targeting systems reset. "EMP variant," shouted Chief Engineer Tanaka. "But not like anything we've seen. Selective disruption. Main power stable, but targeting offline. Restoring from backups." Chen gripped her console. "Time to restore?" 3 minutes minimum." Reeves pointed at the screen. "We don't have 3 minutes." The Drade swarm, immune to the pulse, dove toward the Avalon with renewed aggression. Claws tore at the hull, shields flared, armor groaned. Valari ships fared worse. Half were disabled, drifting helplessly. The Drade ignored them, focusing all fury on the larger threat. "Engineering!" Chen called. "Give me options!" Tanaka's voice came back, strained. "The Avalon's agricultural domes have separate field generators, untouched by the EMP. If we reconfigure and overload them, we could emit a pulse of our own. Not enough to destroy, but maybe enough to disrupt their coordination." "Do it," Chen ordered. "Divert emergency power to shields. If we can't fight, we'll survive long enough to strike back." As the engineering team raced to rewire the emitters, the Avalon shuddered under the constant barrage. Then, an idea came from an unexpected source. "Captain," said Dr. Lakshmi suddenly, "we can't use our main comms, but I believe the Valari communication system operates on visible light bandwidth. We could signal them with Morse code via our external nav lights." Morse? Chen blinked. Lakshmi smiled grimly. Sometimes old tech still matters. Permission granted, Lakshmi began transmitting. Patterns of pulses and blinks, complex, rhythmic, meaningful. Across the void, Valari sensors watched. They understood, and within minutes, they responded. Using their still functioning systems, the Valari synchronized with Avalon's modulated frequencies. Together, both species unleashed a coordinated electromagnetic wave across the battlefield. What happened next surprised even the humans who had devised it. The smaller Drade vessels didn't just lose synchronization. They twitched, spun, panicked. Their tight formation disintegrated into chaos. The hive link had been scrambled, temporarily, but powerfully. They're disoriented, Tanaka confirmed. It's working better than expected. Their biological components are hypersensitive to these frequencies. Weapons back online, shouted Wei. Chen didn't wait. Target the mothership. All batteries. Fire. The Avalon's full might, particle beams, plasma toroids, railgun slugs, hammered the Drade warship. Shielding buckled. Chitin cracked. Glowing wounds spread like veins. Valari vessels followed up with surgical strikes. Precise. Relentless. The tide finally had turned. The Drade, for the first time, fell back. They came to explore. They trained to defend. But no one aboard the Avalon truly expected to be the last wall standing between a peaceful alien civilization and total annihilation. The choice had already been made. Now it was time to see what that choice would cost. The Drade weren't retreating. Not entirely. Their coordination had fractured, but their instinct to destroy still burned hot. The electromagnetic pulse emitted from the Avalon and Valari ships had stunned their drone swarm, disrupted their hive commands, but it hadn't broken them. Not yet. Captain Elisa Chen gripped the armrests of her command chair as another tremor ran through the deck. The ship shuddered, not from within, but from outside impacts. Hundreds of Drade drones slamming into their hull, scraping, clawing, burning at her ship's armor like fire ants on steel. "Shields down to 72%, reported Lieutenant Wei, sweat glistening on his forehead. Hull integrity holding, but some outer decks are reporting structural stress. "Status of the Valari fleet?" Chen asked. Commander Reeves didn't look up from his console. "Still operational. They've regrouped around our position and are coordinating their fire with ours. Their accuracy has improved. Seems our targeting telemetry is helping." Dr. Lakshmi chimed in from the science station. "The drones are still reeling from the pulse interference. Their movements are no longer synchronized. It's chaos out there. But it's not random. They're adapting, slowly." Chen gave a short nod. "We don't have long before they find a workaround." She stood. "All weapon systems, focus on the central Drade vessel. Disable it, if not destroy it. That ship is their mind. Kill the brain. And maybe, just maybe, we kill the swarm." The Avalon surged forward, flanked by shimmering Valari vessels whose design still looked more like a ballet of light and motion than a military operation. The human vessel, angular, enormous, and scarred from repeated impacts, looked like a warrior covered in ash. And now, she was angry. Across the forward arc, particle beams lanced outward with renewed intensity, carving through clusters of drones. Railgun turrets locked onto larger drones that had adapted partial shielding, slamming into them with kinetic force that shattered their organic armor. Plasma toroids erupted in radiant arcs, slicing deep into the already damaged hull of the Drade mothership. The alien warship responded. What had previously looked like pulsing tentacles or strange antennae began to shift and harden. They glowed red, then white, and unleashed what could only be described as beam-laced lightning, arcing unpredictably through the void. One bolt struck a Valari frigate head-on. The screen flared. A moment later, only debris remained. On the bridge, silence fell. Then Wang whispered, "Valari vessel Thulavar destroyed. No survivors." Chen closed her eyes, just for a breath. "Reposition to shield the remaining Valari ships," she ordered. "Divert half our point defense fire to cover their flanks." Reeves blinked. "Captain, that'll leave us exposed on the rear axis." "I know." He stared at her. She didn't blink. Then he turned back to his station. "Aye, Captain." The Avalon twisted its orbit, placing its titanic bulk squarely between the Drade warship and the remaining Valari defenders. The maneuver left the ship's vulnerable engine section partially exposed, but also bought their new allies a chance to survive. Dr. Lakshmi stepped beside Chen at the command podium, lowering her voice. They see us now, not just as a curiosity or a threat, but as something they never expected. Chen glanced at her. What? Lakshmi's expression was calm but heavy. As protectors. Outside the viewport, the Drade mothership opened like a blooming flower, if that flower had hundreds of teeth. From within its internal chambers, dozens of larger drones emerged. These were different, sleeker, faster, and armed. New class of enemy craft incoming, Wei shouted. Estimating 60 units. These are not just drones, these look like strike fighters. Reeves gritted his teeth. They've been holding back, testing us. And now they're getting serious, Chen finished. Inside the Avalon, battle stations were fully manned. Gunners loaded and maintained rail systems. Engineers rerouted power between damaged sections. Medical teams prepared triage stations in the lower decks. Civilians, families, children, spouses, huddled together in the reinforced core of the ship. This wasn't a drill. It was humanity's first real war in space. The incoming strike fighters hit hard. Where the earlier drones clawed and rammed, these precision-engineered craft launched plasma projectiles, corrosive bursts, and strange biomechanical darts that splattered against Avalon's hull like ink, and then began eating into the armor plating. New chemical signature detected, Tanaka warned from engineering. Organic acidic compounds. They're using living weapons. Chen's stomach turned, but she kept her voice steady. Deploy countermeasures. Vent external plasma along the hull. Burn them off. The ship reacted. Lines of fire snaked along its surface, searing away the alien growths in crackling streaks of light. Some of the Drade weapons screamed as they died, an eerie echo in the comm channels. Inside the bridge, Maya Wong sat upright, headphones pressed to her ear. Captain, incoming transmission from Valari Commander Therrell. On screen. The alien appeared again, visibly strained. Portions of his skin were blackened, dull. Valerie physiology clearly didn't hide injury well. Captain Chen, Therrell said, voice trembling slightly. Our remaining defensive craft are on the verge of collapse. You must retreat. Save your people. We cannot withstand this. Chen looked at him through the screen, then replied without hesitation. We're not going anywhere. Not while you still stand. Therrell's skin shifted, deep blue, then gold, then back again. I underestimated your kind, he said quietly. We all did. Chen nodded slowly. Let's make sure we both live long enough to talk about it. Back on the battlefield, the Drade mothership began to pulse again, this time with a dark red light that built steadily with every second. Tanaka didn't like it. That's a build-up signature. They're going to release something, likely a shockwave, something big. Options? Chen asked. If we reroute all shield power to the forward array, we can absorb most of it. But we'll have to cut engines and all rear-facing defenses. And the Valari? They don't have the shielding density to withstand a full-force blast. Their ships will be vaporized. Chen turned to her crew. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. They began rerouting systems before the order was even given. As the red energy reached critical mass, the Avalon shifted position again, directly in front of the Valari fleet. Shields charged, Wei reported. Chen exhaled slowly. Brace. The space between stars erupted. The blast hit like the fist of a god. Wave after wave of pressure, radiation, and force slamming against the Avalon's shields. The lights dimmed. Consoles sparked. Hull plating creaked with thunderous groans. But it held. Barely. When the light faded, when the screaming of sensors died down, the bridge opened its eyes to see something incredible. The Valari fleet was still there. Not a single ship lost. Chen's voice cracked slightly as she whispered. Damage report. Tanaka answered. Shields down to 22%. Rear armor compromised. We lost 2 external turrets and 1 sensor array, but we're alive. Targeting? Still functional. Then let's end this. The Avalon rose like a titan reborn, scarred, furious, and unrelenting. With all systems focused on the Drade mothership, it launched its final assault. Plasma bolts tore through the hull. Rail slugs slammed into engine cores. Energy beams split open exposed nerve-like conduits. And with each strike, the alien ship's structure began to unravel. The Valari, now recoordinated, joined in, launching precision strikes at weakened sections. Their beams of light wove between Avalon's barrages in perfect sync. A final railgun round penetrated deep into the heart of the Drade vessel. And then, silence, followed by detonation. The Drade mothership cracked in half, unleashing a violent explosion that rippled across the void. Smaller Drade drones, still scattered and leaderless, shut down or self-destructed mid-flight. The war, at least this one, was over. The bridge of the Avalon was filled with hushed awe. Maya Wong broke the silence. "Captain, the Valari commander requests to come aboard." Chen nodded. "Tell him he's welcome." The wreckage still drifted. Pieces of the Drade mothership, twisted metal and charred organic matter, floated silently in orbit, like bones of a beast too terrible to name. The battle was over, but the silence that followed wasn't peace. It was reflection, recovery. A moment where everyone aboard the Avalon realized what they had survived and what it had cost. The lights on the TSV Avalon flickered faintly as emergency power routed through bypassed systems. Deckhands moved through the corridors, securing damaged bulkheads and assisting injured crew. Sparks still fell from exposed wiring in some sectors. The scent of burnt plastic and coolant lingered in the air. Captain Alie Chen stood on the bridge, hands folded behind her back, shoulders drawn but unbowed. The screen before her no longer displayed tactical overlays or targeting reticles. Instead, it showed the Valari fleet, still intact, still standing. Because of them. Around her, the bridge crew was quiet. They moved with the fatigue that only came from surviving something impossible. "Status of our systems?" she asked, her voice low but clear. Lieutenant Wei, bruised and tired, answered first. "Weapons offline. Shields at 18% and rising slowly. Engine output restricted to maneuvering thrust. Long-range communications are intermittent. But we're still here." "And casualties?" Commander Reeves looked up from his console. His jaw was tight. 37 injured, 2 critical, no fatalities." Chen closed her eyes for a moment and whispered, "Thank God." There was a pause. Then Maya Wong spoke from her station. "Incoming request, Captain. The Valari commander wishes to come aboard." Chen nodded without hesitation. "Prepare the diplomatic conference room. Full security escort, minimal presence. No weapons drawn. We greet them as friends." Reeves leaned toward her. "Are we sure that's wise? They're still evaluating us." "We fought for them," Chen replied quietly, "and bled with them. Now it's time to stand together." The diplomatic conference room on Deck 3 had been designed for such a moment, though no one ever believed it would actually be used. The long, oval table was surrounded by flexible seating, ambient lighting tuned to non-aggressive blues, and subtle environmental controls that could simulate various atmospheres. The Avalon's AI had already adjusted oxygen levels and humidity to suit Valari biology. Chen arrived early. She wore her formal Terran Fleet uniform, deep navy with gold lining and the crest of Earth etched over her left breast. Her officers followed shortly: Reeves, Dr. Lakshmi, Chief Engineer Tanaka, and 2 cultural liaisons. Then the doors opened. Admiral Therrell entered with 3 Valari delegates. They moved gracefully, their slender forms almost gliding across the floor. Their skin shimmered softly, blue-green waves pulsing gently in patterns that suggested peace and curiosity. They were unarmed, uncloaked, and unguarded. Chen stepped forward. "Welcome aboard the Avalon, Admiral." Therrell tilted his head slightly, a gesture they had come to understand as deep respect. "Captain Chen," he replied, the translator rendering his voice musical but formal. "Your vessel, your people, are unlike anything we expected. You arrived unannounced, vast and powerful. We feared the worst. We were wrong." "We feared the same," Chen admitted, "and still chose to stay. You saved our world." "Not alone," Chen said, motioning to her crew. "We stood together. You trusted us when you didn't have to, and that trust saved all of us." The Valari nodded slowly, then moved to take their seats. The meeting lasted for hours. It began with formal thanks, expressions of gratitude so earnest they left several human officers speechless. The Valari had assumed the worst of humanity, and humanity had proven them wrong. From there, the conversation turned practical. The Valari requested access to portions of the Avalon's sensor data, specifically their internal recordings of the Drade's electromagnetic wave behavior. They believed the Avalon systems had captured things even Valari sensors had missed. In return, they offered their own research on biomechanical warfare, energy harmonics, and even biological translation theory, a field where Valari excelled. They proposed that together, they could not only rebuild, but prepare for the next threat. Chen approved the exchange. Then the meeting shifted, from data to philosophy. Dr. Lakshmi posed a question. Why did your people never expand beyond your neighboring systems? You're clearly capable. Your technology is, in some areas, superior to ours. Theryl's eyes shimmered violet. We did not expand because we feared what we would find. Not all stars are kind. Not all minds are open. Our history taught us caution. And ours taught us ambition, Chen said. Not always for the better. Perhaps, Theryl mused. That is why this alliance works. You are brave where we are cautious. We are careful where you are bold. Different strengths, Lakshmi said softly. Balancing each other. Together, Theryl concluded. We may survive what alone would have destroyed us. As the meeting drew to a close, Theryl stood and turned to Chen. Our council wishes to propose something more permanent. Chen raised an eyebrow. An alliance? A beginning, he clarified. A shared station, joint research, cultural exchange. We would invite Terran representatives to visit our homeworld. Learn from us. Let us learn from you. Chen exchanged glances with her team. Reeves smiled slightly. Lakshmi simply nodded. We would be honored, Chen replied. Theryl extended a hand. A moment passed. Then Chen took it. Their hands, human skin and iridescent shimmer, met in the soft lighting of the Avalon's diplomatic chamber. And something changed. Not just for them, but for two entire species. In the days that followed, the Valari and Terran personnel began working side by side across the Avalon. In the medical bays, human doctors learned how Valari used resonance frequencies to heal tissue. In the engineering decks, Valari technicians showed Avalon crews how to reduce energy waste by mimicking natural flow cycles. And in the cultural archives, humans introduced Valari scholars to Shakespeare, Maya civilization, Motown, and classic films. In return, the Valari shared their memory stone poetry, their living music sculptures, and the story of how their civilization survived its own near-extinction event 2,000 years ago. There were misunderstandings. Of course there were. A Valari child aboard one of the ambassadorial shuttles was terrified by the ship's navigation AI, which it believed was a ghost in the walls. A human officer mistakenly interpreted a Valari's changing skin tone as hostility, when in fact, it was a gesture of respect for scientific curiosity. But through every stumble, both sides made the effort to understand. One evening, Chen stood in the main observation dome, staring at the stars. The room was quiet, the curved glass above offering a full view of the Drade battlefield, now empty, save for scattered debris and slow-moving recovery drones. Commander Reeves entered quietly. You okay? Chen didn't turn. Just thinking. About what? She gestured to the stars. How close it all came. How easy it would have been to run. To put Earth first. And how different that would have made us. Reeves stood beside her. But we didn't. And that did make a difference. Do you think Earth will understand? She asked. When we report back. When we explain what we did. What we gave. What we risked. Reeves nodded. Some will. Some won't. But the ones who matter will. Chen smiled faintly. Then she said, You know, when I took command of this ship, I thought our greatest challenge would be surviving deep space, keeping the crew safe, managing resources. And now? Reeves asked. Chen looked out once more. Now I realize it was about becoming something more than explorers, more than warriors. It was about becoming part of something greater. Reeves was quiet a moment. Then he said, You did good, Captain. Chen didn't reply. She didn't need to. The stars answered for her. News travels fast. Even across the stars, even through the vacuum of space, the story of what happened above the Valerie homeworld spread like wildfire. Because it wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about transformation. About what happens when two different species, two separate histories, and two uncertain futures collide and decide to rise together instead of falling apart. The TSV Avalon was still under repair. Scarred plating was being replaced section by section. Engineers worked around the clock to rebuild damaged systems. The ship's engines, though functional, were limited to low-thrust maneuvers. Several decks remained sealed due to biohazard exposure from Drade compounds. But still, the lights were back on. The systems hummed. The ship lived. Captain Alie Chen sat in her private quarters, staring out the porthole at the Valerie planet below. The world shimmered in greens and silvers, cloud systems swirling in elegant spirals across its surface. Below, construction had already begun on a joint research station, one that would orbit the Valerie homeworld and serve as neutral ground for science, diplomacy, and learning. She sipped tea, letting the silence settle around her. Then came the soft knock at the door. "Come in," she said. Commander Jackson Reeves entered, holding a slim datapad. His expression was thoughtful but subdued. "They've sent the final draft," he said, handing her the tablet. "Joint announcement. They're broadcasting it from both sides in a few hours." Chen scrolled through it slowly. The document was formal, clear, but deeply symbolic. An interstellar alliance. Not military, not economic, but something broader. A pledge of mutual learning, cultural respect, and defense if necessary. No treaties of dominance. No conquest. Just collaboration. Trust. "Do you think Earth is ready for this?" she asked. Reeves gave a dry chuckle. "Earth's barely ready for traffic reform, but they'll catch up." Chen smirked. Then the smirk faded into something more solemn. "It's not just a partnership," she said. "It's a mirror. The Valerie showed us what we could be, what we've always wanted to be. And when the time came, we showed them something too. That courage doesn't always come from strength. Sometimes it comes from showing up, when no one expects you to." 2 days later, the first Terran Valerie broadcast was sent across the known systems. Translated into dozens of languages and frequency types, the message wasn't long, but it didn't have to be. "To all intelligent life among the stars, we were strangers. Now we are allies. Where there was fear, we found understanding. Where there was destruction, we built hope. Let this be a beginning, not an end. Let cooperation define the future, not conquest. We are the Valerie. We are the Terrans. We stand together." In the weeks that followed, the transformation was astonishing. The joint orbital station, named Haven 1, became the most ambitious project either species had ever attempted together. Crews from both sides worked shoulder to shoulder, humans teaching mechanical redundancy, Valerie sharing harmonic energy principles. In the ship's medical bay, joint research began on cross-species resilience, combining human emergency response techniques with Valerie regenerative methods. Cancer treatment, tissue regrowth, even emotional trauma therapy. New hybrid solutions emerged faster than anyone expected. The arts and culture teams created shared exhibitions, floating sculpture gardens, digital concerts combining Earth jazz with Valerie sound harmonics, translated poetry readings that left human and alien audiences alike in tears. The first Valerie diplomat arrived on Earth, greeted by a mix of awe, celebration, and the cautious uncertainty that always comes with something new. Cities across the globe lit up their skylines in Valerie colors. Children painted their skin in rippling patterns to mimic the aliens' expressive tones. And perhaps most symbolically, the children of both races began learning each other's languages. But it wasn't perfect. Not everyone welcomed the alliance. On Earth, some viewed the Valerie with suspicion, accusing them of hiding greater power or manipulating human culture through subtle influence. Some nations demanded to know what technologies were being shared, and why others weren't invited to the table first. In Valerie society, some elders protested the exposure to Terran media and music. They feared cultural erosion. They questioned whether humanity, still so young and prone to war, could ever truly be trusted. But the alliance held, not because it was easy, but because the people who had been there, on the battlefield, in the orbit of death, refused to let fear win again. One day, Chen was invited to speak before both governments in a joint address. She stood in the Unity Dome, a vast amphitheater suspended in orbit between the two worlds, and looked out across a sea of Valari and human faces. "I don't have a speech," she began. "Just a memory." She paused, letting the silence pull everyone in. "I remember the moment we first saw your ships. You surrounded us. You didn't fire, you didn't flee. You watched, and we did the same. I remember the first time we heard your voice. It was music, language, logic, but mostly it was hope." She looked around the hall. "I remember the Drade. I remember their swarm blotting out the sky. I remember your ships falling. I remember choosing to stay." The crowd was silent. "I remember thinking, we may die here, but we won't die as strangers." She took a breath. "And now I see more than memory. I see possibility. Not just between our two peoples, but for everyone who's watching." This alliance wasn't forged in comfort. It was born in fire, and it held. I don't know what's coming. The universe is too big for certainty. But I know this. The next time the stars grow dark, we won't be standing alone. Thunderous applause followed. Even the Valari, a species with no tradition of clapping, emitted a synchronized resonance that vibrated the very walls of the dome. It was music. Back aboard the Avalon, months later, Chen sat again in the observation dome. This time, the stars weren't reminders of what was lost. They were signs of what had begun. Dr. Lakshmi joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea. "Still staring?" she asked with a warm smile. "Always," Chen replied. They sat for a while in silence. Finally, Lakshmi said, "You know what I think the real miracle was?" Chen glanced at her. "What?" "That neither of us was wrong. Not the Valari with their fear, not us with our hope. We were just incomplete. Pieces of something bigger." Chen sipped her tea. "And now? Now we're building the rest." Back on Earth, students study the Avalon encounter the way they used to study the Apollo landings. Museums showcase fragments of the original hull. Children play games pretending to be Captain Chen or Admiral Therill. Artists render murals of the Drade being driven back by 2 united fleets. But in quiet corners of those exhibits are reminders. Scorched armor plating. Recordings of the emergency broadcasts during the battle. Letters written by Avalon crew, unsure if they'd survive the night. Because the story isn't just one of victory. It's a story of sacrifice, of courage, of a choice to do the right thing, even when it wasn't the easy thing. And maybe, in the end, that's what matters most. That when faced with fear, we chose empathy. That when given the chance to run, we chose to stand. That when offered silence, we chose to speak. Not just to each other, but to the universe itself. To say, we are here. We are human, and we choose to be better. Real-world reflection and final lesson. In our own world, we often face the same choice that Chen and her crew did. We're confronted by the unknown, whether that's new cultures, new technologies, or new threats, and our first instinct is often fear. We build walls, we prepare for war, but the story of the Avalon reminds us that the greatest power we have isn't firepower or size. It's the ability to choose understanding over instinct, cooperation over control. The lesson isn't science fiction, it's timeless. When the world feels divided, when fear becomes louder than reason, remember, we don't have to be the strongest to be the bravest. And sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is extend a hand across the stars, or across the street, and say, let's build something together.